नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स नमो तस्स भगवतो सम्बुद्धस्स नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स साधु साधु. Okay, to read apart from the Dhammapada verses, the Kodhavagga regarding the anger. And I'm going to read Bante Venerable Acharya Buddharakita's translation. And also the stories are there on the Tripitaka.net. I'm going to read the stories from that. One should give up anger, renounce pride, and overcome fetters. Suffering never befalls him who clings not mind and body and is detached. And there is always a lot of meaning that's running around each of the Dhammapada verses. And I'd like to share my screen. Give up anger, abandon conceit, overcome all fetters, ills of life, dukkha. Do not befall one who does not cling to mind and body and is free from moral defilements. So the Dhammapada's Gatha, and the story goes like this. Rohini Kattiyakanna, while residing at the Nigrodhama monastery, the Buddha uttered words of this book with reference to Rohini Anuruddha. On one occasion, Tera Anuruddha Kapilavattu, while he was staying at the monastery there, all his relatives, with the exception of his sister Rohini, came to see him. On learning from them that Rohini did not come because she was suffering from leprosy, he sent for her. Covering her head in shame, Rohini came when she was sent for. Tera Anuruddha told her to do some meritorious deeds, and he suggested that she should sell some of her clothing and jewelry, and with the money raised, to build a refectory to the bhikkhu. Rohini agreed to do as she was told. Tera Anuruddha also asked his other relatives to help in the construction of the hall. Further, he told Rohini to sweep the floor and fill the water pots every day, even while the construction was still going on. She said she did as she was instructed, and she began to get better. When the hall was completed, the Buddha and his bhikkhus were invited for alms. After the meal, the Buddha asked for the donor of the building and alms food. But Rohini was not there, so the Buddha sent for her and she came. The Buddha asked her whether she knew why she was inflicted with this dread disease, and she answered that she did not know. So the Buddha told her that she had the dreadful disease because of an evil deed she had done out of spite and anger. In one of her past existence, as explained by the Buddha, Rohini was at one time the chief queen of the king of Varanasi. It so happened that the king had a favorite dancer, and the chief queen was very jealous of her. So the queen wanted to punish the dancer. Thus, one day she had her attendants put some itching powder made from cow hair powders in the dancer's bed, her blankets, etc. Next day, they called the dancer, and as thought in jest, they threw some itching powder on her. The girl itched all over and was in great pain and discomfort. Thus itching unbearably, she ran to her room and her bed, which made her suffer even more. As the result of that evil deed, Rohini had become a leper in this existence. The Buddha then exhorted the congregation not to act foolishly in anger and not to bear any ill will towards others. Then the Buddha spoke in verse as follows: Give up anger, abandon conceit, overcome all fetters, ills of life, dukkha, do not befall one who does not cling to mind and body and is free from moral defilements. We can see here when we give up anger, when we give up conceit, then when we give up all the fetters, then the dukkha will not be anymore because all the fetters are gone and then there will not be any more suffering. He who checks rising anger as a charioteer checks a rolling chariot. Him I call a true charioteer. Others only hold the reins. This is the second verse in the Kodhavagga. So this is the story behind it. He who restrains his arising anger as a skillful charioteer checks a speeding chariot. Him I call a true charioteer. Other charioteers only hold the reins. Here we can see when we are mindful and we can know that the anger is arising and we can let go of it by zigzagging, release it, relax it then and there. Then we can know that we are the skillful charioteer. We are mindful our own actions, that we are not going to break up into any angry verbally. Then if there is someone who does not control his anger, then he's just holding the reins. He is acting wherever the charioteer is taking, or he's just holding the reins. The story goes, the story of a bhikkhu while residing at the Agalava stupa in the city of Alavi. The Buddha uttered verse 222 of this book with reference to a bhikkhu. Once a bhikkhu from Alavi wanted to build a monastery for himself, and so he began to cut down a tree. The deva dwelling in that tree, Rukha Devata, tried to stop him, saying that she and her infant son had nowhere to go. Falling to stop the bhikkhu, failing to stop the bhikkhu, she put her son on a branch, hoping that it would stop him from felling the tree. By then, the bhikkhu was already swinging his axe, and he could not stop it in the time, and unintentionally cut off an arm of the child. Seeing her child being harmed in this way, the mother flew in a rage and was about to kill the bhikkhu. As she realized her hands to strike the bhikkhu, she suddenly checked herself and thought, if I were to kill a bhikkhu, I would be killing one who observed the moral precepts, sila. In that case, I would surely suffer in niraya. Other guardian devas of the trees would be following my example, and other bhikkhus would also be killed. But this bhikkhu has a master. I must go and see his master. So he so she went weeping to the Buddha and related all that had happened. To her the Buddha said, O Rukha Devata, you have done well to control yourself. Then the Buddha spoke in verse as follows: He as a skillful charioteer checks a speeding chariot. Him I call a true charioteer. Other charioteers only hold the reins. We can see being mindful, she did not act out of anger, and she has been patient and went to the Buddha and explained all that has happened. And the Buddha told that you have done it very good act, that you haven't taken any action further. And being mindful and six-aring the anger or any of the hindrance is very much important, because all our actions will be rooted in our act. The way we are thinking, the way we are acting comes up first in the mind, and if we know if it's wholesome or unwholesome. If it's unwholesome, we need to sixar it immediately. Overcome the anger by non-anger. Overcome the wicked by goodness. Overcome the miser by generosity. Overcome the liar by truth. This is the third Gada from Kodhavagga. The story of Uttara, the lay disciple. While residing at the Veluvana monastery, the Buddha uttered this verse with reference to Uttara, a female lay disciple. Uttara was the daughter of a farm laborer named Punna and his wife. Punna worked for a rich man named Sumana in Rajagaha. One day, Punna and his wife offered alms food to Venerable Sariputta. Soon after his arising from sustained deep mental absorption Nirodha Samapati, and as a result of that good deed, they suddenly became very rich. Punna came upon gold in the field he was ploughing, and the king officially declared him a royal banker. On one occasion, the family of Punna offered alms food to the Buddha and the bhikkhu for 7 days. And on the seventh day, after hearing the Buddha's discourse, all the three members of the family attained Sotapanti fruition. Later, Uttara, the daughter of Punna, married the son of the rich man, Sumana. That family, being non-Buddhist, Uttara did not feel happy in her husband's home. So she told her father, my father, why have you put me in this cage? Here I do not see any bhikkhu and have no chance to offer anything to any bhikkhu. Her father felt sorry for her and sent her 15,000 in cash. With this money, after getting permission from her husband, Uttara engaged a courtesan, a look to the need of her husband. So it was arranged that Sirima, a well-known and very beautiful courtesan, was to take her place as a wife for 15 days. During that time, Uttara offered alms food to the Buddha and the bhikkhus. On the 15th day, as she was busy preparing food in the kitchen, her husband saw her from the bedroom window and smiled, and then muttered to himself, how foolish she is. She does not know how to enjoy herself. She is tiring herself out with this alms giving ceremony. Cinema saw him smile, and forgetting that she was only a paid substitute wife, felt very jealous of Uttara. Being unable to control herself, Seema went into the kitchen and got a ladle full of boiling butter with the intention of pouring it over the head of Uttara. Uttara saw her coming, but she bore no ill will towards Sirima. She reflected that because Sirima had stood in for her, she had been able to listen to the Dhamma, make offering of alms food for 15 days, and perform other acts of charity. Thus she was quite thankful to Sirima. Suddenly, she realized that Sirima had come very close to her and was going to pour boiling hot butter over her. So she made this assertion: if there were any may this boiling hot butter burn me. If I have no ill will towards her, may it not burn me. As Uttara had no ill will towards Sirima, the boiling butter poured over her head by Sirima was just like cold water. Then Sirima thought the butter must have gone cold, and as she went for another ladleful of boiling butter, the attendants of Uttara fell upon her and beat her hard. Uttara stopped her attendants and instructed them to rub Sirima with medicinal ointment. Then Sirima remembered her true position and regretted that she had done wrong to Uttara and asked Uttara to forgive her. To her, Uttara replied, I have my father. I shall ask him whether I should accept your apology. Sirima then said that she would readily go and apologize to rich man, the father of Uttara. Uttara then explained to Sirima, when I said my father, I did not mean my real father, who had brought me into these rounds of rebirth. I was referring to my father, the Buddha, who had helped me break the chain of rebirths, who had brought me to the Dhamma, the noble truths. Sirima then expressed her wish to see the Buddha. So it was arranged that Sirima should offer alms food to the Buddha and the bhikkhus on the following day at the house of Uttara. After the meal, the Buddha was told everything that had happened between Sirima and Uttara. Sirima then owned up that she had done wrong to Uttara and entertained, entreated the Buddha that she should be forgiven, for otherwise Uttara would not forgive her. The Buddha then asked Uttara how she felt in her mind when Sirima poured boiling butter on her head. And Uttara answered, Venerable Sir, because I owed so much to Sirima, I had resolved not to lose my temper, not to bear any ill will towards her. I sent forth my love towards her. Then the Buddha said, well done, Uttara. By not bearing any ill will, you have been able to conquer one who has done you wrong through hate. By not abusing, you should conquer one who eh, abuses you. By being generous, you should conquer one who is stingy. By speaking the truth, you should conquer one who tells lies. So, this is the story of Uttara and Sirima. I think the story is pretty simple. I hope everybody is understanding. And I'll read this verse once again. Overcome the anger by non anger, which is the loving kindness. Overcome the wicked by goodness. Overcome the miser by generosity. Overcome the liar by truth. Normally, we have the habitual tendency of immediately reacting to whatever that is happening, taking it personally. But rather, like Sirima did here, she took a pause, and Uttara took a pause over here, and then she remembered because she could able to take a break from her family life and could go to the Buddha and bhikkhus and offer the food because of the Uttara. Then she could able to keep her mind in a calm state even while she was pouring the oil. We should have this mindfulness and should not react and reflect and maybe respond with a harmonious way. The next words: speak the truth, yield not to anger when asked, give even if you have if you only have a little. By these three means can one reach the presence of the gods. One should speak the truth. One should not yield to anger. One should give when asked, even if it is only a little. By means of these three, one may go to the world of the Devas. While residing at the Jitavana monastery, the Buddha uttered this verse with reference to the question raised by Tera Mahamukkalanna. Once, Tera Mahamukkalanna visited the Deva world and found many Devas living in luxurious mansions. He asked them for what good deed they were reborn in the Deva world, and they gave him different answers. One of them was reborn in the Deva world, not because he gave away much wealth in charity, or because he had listened to the Dhamma, but just because he always spoke the truth. The second one was a female Deva who was reborn in the Deva world because she did not get angry with her master and had no ill will towards him, even though he often beat her and abused her. For keeping her temper and abandoning hatred, she was reborn in the Deva world. Then there were others who were reborn in the Deva world because they had offered little things like a stick of sugar cane, a fruit, or some vegetable to a bhikkhu or to someone else. On his return from the Deva world, Tera Mahamukkalanna asked the Buddha whether it was possible to gain such a great benefits by just speaking the truth, or by restraining one's actions, or by giving small amounts of such trifling things like fruits and vegetables. To him, the Buddha answered, "My son, why do you ask? Have you not seen for yourself and heard what the Devas said? You should not have any doubt. Little deeds of merit surely lead one to the world of the Devas." The verse, I'll read it once again. One should speak the truth. One should not yield the anger. One should give when asked, even it is only a little. By means of these three, one may go to the world of the Devas. So, uh, Buddha is here. Buddha has given this verse to Tera Mahamukkalanna. I think it will be applicable to everyone, even in this time as well. One should speak only to the truth when it is timely, and one should not yield any anger. Means one should not even have the it arising even in our mind. Sometimes it arises in our mind, and we do not externally we do not get anger, but it is there in our mind. So even that should be let go of, and one should give when asked, even if it is only a little. It means we have to practice generosity. Whatever little we have, in that little, we can give at least a little. And by these three means, there is a possibility that we will be reborn in the Deva world. Those sages who are inoffensive and ever restrained in body go to the deathless state, where, having gone, they grieve no more. This is the fourth verse from this Kodhavagga. One should speak the truth. One should not yield to anger. I think this page hasn't loaded it. Okay. The arahants who do not harm others and are always restrained in their actions go to the deathless Nibbana where there is no sorrow. The story of the Brahmin who had been the father of the Buddha. While residing at the Anjana wood near Saketa, the Buddha uttered this verse with reference to a Brahmin who claimed that the Buddha was his son. Once the Buddha, accompanied by some bhikkhus, entered the town of Saketa for alms food. The old Brahmin, seeing the Buddha, went to him and said, O son, why have you not allowed us to see you all this long time? Come with me and let your mother also see you. So saying, he invited the Buddha to his house. On reaching the house, the wife of the Brahmin said the same thing to the Buddha and introduced the Buddha as your younger brother, your big brother, to her children and made them pay obeisance to him. From that day, the couple offered alms food to the Buddha every day, and having heard the religious discourse, both the Brahmin and his wife attained anagami fruition in due course. The bhikkhus were puzzled by the Brahmin couple, said to the Buddha, said the Buddha was their son. So they asked the Buddha. The Buddha then replied, Bhikkhus, they called me my son because I was a son or a nephew to each of them for 1,500 existences in the past. The Buddha continued to stay there near the Brahmin couple for 3 more months and during that time both the Brahmin and his wife attained arahantship and then realized parinibbana. The bhikkhus, not knowing that the Brahmin couple had already become arahant, asked the Buddha where they were reborn. To them the Buddha answered, those who have become arahants are not reborn anyway. They have realized Nibbana. The arahants who do not harm others and are always restrained in their actions go to the deathless Nibbana where there is no sorrow. We can see here always restrained in their actions means they are mindful always, means they can see the dependent origination like each and every moment. And when somebody becomes an arhan, then there is no sorrow. Even if there is bodily suffering, there will not be any mental agitation. Their minds are free from sorrow, free from suffering. Those who are ever vigilant, who discipline themselves day and night, and are ever intent upon Nibbana, their defilements fade away. In those who are ever vigilant, who by day and by night train themselves in the three sikhas, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and who have their minds directed towards Nibbana, moral intoxicants become extinct. The story of the Punna, the slave girl. One night, Punna, the slave girl, was up pounding rice for her master. As she tried, she rested for a while. While resting, she saw Tera Tabba leading some bhikkhus to their respective monasteries on their return from listening to the Dhamma. The girl, seeing them up so late, pondered, I have to be up at this late hour because I'm so poor and have to work hard. But why are these good people up at this late hour? Maybe a bhikkhu is sick, or are they being troubled by a snake? Early in the morning, the next day, Punna took some broken rice, soaked it in water, and made a pancake out of it. Then, intending to eat it at the riverside, she took her cheap, coarse pancake along with her. On the way, she saw the Buddha coming on an arms round. She wanted to offer her pancake to the Buddha, but she was not sure whether the Buddha would consider to eat such cheap, coarse pancake. The Buddha knew her thoughts. He accepted her pancake and asked Tera Ananda to spread the small mat on the ground. The Buddha sat on the mat and ate the pancake offered by the slave girl. After eating, the Buddha called Punna to him and answered the question which was troubling her. Said the Buddha to the slave girl, Punna, you cannot go to sleep because you are poor and so have to work hard. As for my sons, the bhikkhus, they do not go to sleep because they have to be always vigilant and ever mindful. In those who are ever vigilant, who by day and by night train themselves in the three sikkas, Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, and who have their mind directed towards Nibbana, moral intoxicants becomes extinct. Here we can see the Buddha is talking about the whole path, the bhikkhus who walking on the path of the Sila, Samadhi, and Panna. This is the eightfold path. And them to be vigilant means they are practicing mindfulness and all the effort, right effort, and all of the path, even in the day and by night, they are practicing it. So this is the 227 words of Dhammapada. All these four verses are connected, 227 to 230. O Atula, indeed, this is an ancient practice, not one only of today. They blame those who remain silent. They blame those who speak much. They blame those who speak in moderation. This is none, there is none in this world who is not blamed. There never was, there never will be, nor there now, a person who is wholly blamed or wholly praised. But the man whom the wise praise after observing him by day after day is one of flawless character, wise and endowed with knowledge and virtue. Who can blame such a one as worthy as a coin of refined gold? Even the gods praise him, by Brahma too is he praised. So these are the verses. I'll read the story of this Dhammapada. While residing at the Jitavana monastery, the Buddha uttered these words. Once Atula and his companions, numbering 500, wishing to listen to words of the Dhamma, went to Tera Revata. The Tera, however, was very aloof, like a lion. He did not say anything to them. They were very much dissatisfied. So they went to the Tera Sariputta. When Tera Sariputta learned why they had come, he expounded exhaustively on the Adidhamma. He also was not to their liking, and they grumbled that Tera Sariputta had been too lengthy and too profound. Next, Atullah and his party approached Tera Ananda. Tera Ananda expounded to them the bare essentials of the Dhamma. This time they remarked that Tera Ananda had been too brief and too sketchy. Finally, they came to the Buddha and said to him, Venerable Sir, we have come to listen to your teaching. We have been to other teachers before we come here, but we are not satisfied with any of them. Thera Revata did not bother to teach us and he just kept silent. Thera Sariputta was too exhaustive and the Dhamma he taught was too difficult for us. As for the Thera Ananda, he was too brief and too sketchy. We did not like any of their discourses. To them, the Buddha said, My disciples, blaming others is not something new. There is no one in this world who is never blamed. People would blame even a king or even a Buddha. To be blamed or to be praised by a fool is of no consequence. One is truly blamed only when he is blamed by a wise man, and truly praised only when praised by a wise man. Then the Buddha spoke in words as follows. It is not new, O Abdullah. It had always been done from ancient times. They blame one who is silent. They blame one who speaks much. They blame one who speaks little. There is no one in this world who is not blamed. There never has been, there never will be, nor is there now anyone who is always blamed or always praised. If the wise praise him day after day, knowing him to be truly faultless, wise and endowed with knowledge and virtue, who would blame him, who is like a nikka of pure gold? The Devas praise him. He is praised even by the great Brahma. So this is the you can see that it's not like only today in this world people are blaming us or somebody we are blaming someone, but it has been like this in the past as well because people do not accept whatever you do. If you speak loud, they blame. If you do not speak, they blame. If you speak slowly, they blame. If you speak fastly, they blame. So rather all of this, we just understand if there is a wise person and they are judging us on what we are doing, then we should see, okay, this is the wrong thing that I was been doing and this needs to be corrected. If they are praising us, so we can do that again and again. If it's wholesome, then we keep doing. Let a man guard himself against irritability in bodily actions. Let him be controlled in deed, abandoning bodily misconduct. Let him practice good conduct in deed. Let a man guard himself against irritability in speech. Let him be controlled in speech, abandoning verbal misconduct. Let him practice good conduct in speech. Let a man guard himself against irritability in thought. Let him be controlled in mind, abandoning mental misconduct. Let him practice good conduct in thought. The wise are controlled in bodily action, controlled in speech, and controlled in thought. They are truly well controlled. So these are the last four verses from this Vagga. This is the story behind it. The story of a group of 6 bhikkhus. While residing at the Veluvana monastery, the Buddha uttered these verses. 6 bhikkhus wearing wooden sandals and each holding a staff with both hands were walking to and fro on a big stone slab, making much noise. The Buddha, hearing the noises, asked Thera Ananda what was going on, and Thera Ananda told him about 6 bhikkhus. The Buddha then prohibited the bhikkhus from wearing the wooden sandals. He further exhorted the bhikkhus to restrain themselves both in words and deeds. Then the Buddha spoke in words: guard against evil deeds, control your body, giving up evil deeds, cultivate good deeds. Guard against evil speech, control your speech. Giving up evil speech, cultivate good speech. Guard against evil thoughts, control your mind. Giving up evil thoughts, cultivate good thoughts. The wise are controlled in deed, they are controlled in speech, they are controlled in thought. Indeed, they are perfectly self controlled. This is the end of Kodhavagga. We can see the last stanza or the last Dhammapada, wherein the Buddha says, controlled in deed, they are controlled in speech, they are controlled in thought. Means they are ever mindful, they have all of their senses in a way they are arhants. In that way, the Buddha has been saying self controlled ones. Also, if we see clearly in the other translations, if I'm referring to Venerable Acharya Buddharakita's translation, he here says, let a man guard himself against irritability in bodily actions. It is not only anger, it's the irritation or the irritability in our bodily actions. If there is some irritability in our bodily actions, then we should siksar it. We should not that perform any of that bodily action. And one should be controlled in the deed. Means whatever action we are performing, one should be in a harmonious way. One should do it only if it's beneficial to us, beneficial to others, and beneficial to both of them. And let him practice good conduct by bodily actions. And in the same way, let a man guard himself against irritability in speech. So, while we are speaking, if there is some discomfort that's happening, if there is something that is unwholesome we are speaking, then we should guard ourselves that we are not going to speak harshly, keep our precept, and not break into anger or speak harshly to someone. Rather, we be controlled in our sense of speech and perform the good action by way of speech. And the irritability in thought, if there is some agitation in our mind, then we have to be collected and see if the mind is having some restlessness or some dissatisfaction arising. Then we should abandon it and we need to cultivate the wholesome body mental action. And when we are doing the 6 hours, we are like letting go of irritability or the hindrances or thought, and we are abandoning it and developing the wholesome good good conduct in thought. This is what we are doing in our practice. And it's not only regarding the anger, we can look for the dissatisfaction that we are experiencing in our lives. Okay, one person might be saying that, okay, I do not get anger or might not break into anger anyway, but there is so much of dissatisfaction or so much of irritability in their life. So it's not only anger, but we can look for the dissatisfaction and irritability in our minds, in our speech, or whatever action we are performing. If there is some kind of irritation or discomfort while performing that actions, because that is unwholesome, then there is discomfort that is happening. And when we are having discomfort, we abandon it, we let go of it and cultivate the wholesome actions. by way of body, by way of speech, by way of our mind, mental thoughts. And what happens when we get anger? We are not mindful the next step. The other day I was listening to the Dhamma talk where the monk says, when you are in your hindrances, your mind gets hijacked. You can see if you are angry, your mind is no way mindful. We can see our mind is kind of hijacked with that anger. And when we are out of anger and we come back and sit down and start reflecting, we can see how much damage we have caused to ourselves, how much difficulty we have caused, how much suffering it was. And all this was happening because we were hijacked with that anger. But rather, if we are mindful with the arising of our anger, knowing that it's going to trouble us, trouble the other person, then we let go of it, relax, smile, and come back with a wholesome state of mind. And wait a minute, I'll stop screen sharing. So, this anger or any kind of action that we are going to perform, one should be mindful. The mindfulness aspect is very much important. We could able to recognize that there is the presence of anger only if we are mindful about the thoughts, about the actions that we are going to perform. And one should look for irritability or the dissatisfaction that is arising while performing any of the action by body, by speech, or by mind. This will help you to let go of it and relax and smile and come back to the wholesome. Anybody has any question? Do anybody wants to share anything regarding your practice? If there is no question, we'll share the merits then. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear stuck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all the beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and devas and nagas of mighty power share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you everyone for joining. Wish you all of you be happy.